The curious encounter. The rain fell steadily on the streets of New Zenas, a city known for its pulsing neon lights and chaotic fusion of alien cultures. The perpetual twilight of this sprawling metropolis lent an eerie glow to the skyline, where massive towers stretched high above the crowded streets. The air was thick with moisture and the electric hum of technology, creating an almost dreamlike atmosphere. The constant drizzle didn't seem to bother the people here. They had grown accustomed to the wet, neon-saturated world they inhabited. Tristan Amers, a lone cargo pilot, was far too familiar with the feeling of isolation. For the past 3 years, he had been flying solo between Earth and the outer colonies, navigating the depths of space with only the hum of his ship, the Iron Phoenix, for company. The silence of deep space had become a constant companion, the quiet hum of engines and the occasional transmission the only sounds he heard for days on end. And as much as he loved the thrill of space travel, it had started to wear on him. He longed for something more than just the endless void of space. As his boots splashed through the puddles of New Zenas' wet streets, Tristan couldn't help but feel a pang of loneliness deep in his chest. The marketplace was alive with energy, as it always was at this hour, but it felt almost suffocating. The neon signs buzzed and flickered, each one offering something new: exotic foods, strange technology, and curiosities from worlds far away. But none of it caught his attention. He had grown used to the hustle and bustle of the alien district, but today something felt different. The weight of solitude pressed heavily on him, the thought of spending another year alone in space gnawing at his mind. "Maybe I should get a pet," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his damp, dark hair. He had never been one for animals, but the idea of having something, anything, to break the silence of his ship seemed more appealing with every passing minute. He continued walking, passing by vendors and street performers, until something caught his eye. An old, somewhat out-of-place shop stood at the end of the street, its neon sign glowing softly in the dim light. The sign, written in both English and several alien scripts, read "Stellar Companions." There was something about the place that stood out. Unlike the flashy holographic advertisements that lined the streets, this shop seemed to exude an air of quiet mystery. Tristan hesitated as he approached the door. The shop seemed different, more refined, as if it catered to those seeking something rare or unique. He wasn't sure what he was expecting, but the idea of a companion, something to fill the void, was a tempting prospect. He had seen pets in other parts of the galaxy, but most of them were just standard animals, nothing that could truly offer the companionship he craved. With a deep breath, Tristan pushed the door open and stepped inside. The cool air inside the shop contrasted sharply with the humid atmosphere outside. The shop was dimly lit, and the shelves were lined with strange exotic creatures from all corners of the galaxy. The air smelled faintly of incense, and soft, melodic music played in the background. It was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaotic energy of the streets outside. As Tristan walked further into the shop, his gaze wandered over the various enclosures. There were 6-legged felines, floating jellyfish-like creatures that emitted soft, bioluminescent light, and even small, spherical creatures that chirped in high-pitched tones. None of these interested him. He wasn't looking for something ordinary. He needed something special, something that would break the monotony of his life. "Welcome, honored customer," a voice said from behind him. Tristan turned to see a tall, spindly alien with iridescent scales standing at the counter. The alien's eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and professionalism. "I am Ril, the proprietor of this humble establishment. How may I assist you today?" Tristan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'm looking for something intelligent, something low maintenance but capable of companionship." Ril's multifaceted eyes gleamed as he nodded. "Ah, yes. I believe I have just the thing for you. Follow me." Ril led him past rows of conventional pets, ordinary animals that were not unlike what one might find on Earth, until they reached a secluded corner of the shop. This area was marked with a sign that read, "Special Companions." The lights here were dimmer, the air thicker with a sense of mystery. Tristan's instincts buzzed in the back of his mind. He wasn't sure why, but something about this part of the shop felt off. Yet his curiosity pushed him forward. He had no idea what Earl was about to show him, but he knew it wasn't going to be ordinary. "This is it," Earl said, gesturing to a small, empty room. "Our latest acquisition. A highly intelligent companion." Tristan frowned. The room was completely empty except for some decorative partitions. "I don't see anything," he muttered, his voice tinged with confusion. Just as he was about to ask another question, something caught his eye. A subtle movement behind one of the partitions, a shadow shifting, a flicker of life. Tristan's heart skipped a beat as he watched a figure step forward into the dim light. It wasn't what he expected. A humanoid female emerged from behind the partition, her body moving with an eerie, fluid grace. Her skin shimmered with a subtle lilac metallic sheen, and her long, dark hair fell in straight curtains around her face. She was dressed in a minimalist black outfit that barely covered her body, and a collar with a glowing holographic tag was fastened tightly around her neck. Tristan took an involuntary step back, his mouth going dry. This was no ordinary pet. This was something else entirely. Rel seemed completely unfazed by Tristan's reaction. "This is a Nexian," he said smoothly, "a very rare species known for their adaptability and companionship capabilities. She is highly intelligent and has voluntarily entered into a temporary companion contract." Tristan's mind was racing. A sentient being offered as a companion. He felt his chest tighten as he processed the information. "Wait, you're telling me you're selling sentient beings as pets?" Rel smiled, clearly accustomed to this reaction. "Not selling, honored customer. Facilitating temporary companion contracts. The Nexian enters the contract voluntarily, and in return, she is compensated handsomely. This is completely legal under coalition law." The woman, Nexian, as Rel had called her, remained still, her piercing blue eyes locked onto Tristan's. There was something in her gaze that unnerved him. A mixture of pride and something else, something darker. It was as if she was watching him, studying him, waiting for him to make his decision. Tristan's mind was spinning. This was not a normal purchase. This wasn't like adopting a pet. This was a sentient being, one who could think, feel, and act on her own. But there she stood, her posture proud yet subservient, as if she had accepted her role in this strange arrangement. Rel continued, "She is trained to be an intelligent companion. Low maintenance, loyal, and adaptable. She will learn quickly and bond with you." Tristan took another step back, his mind still racing. This wasn't what he had expected when he had walked into the shop looking for a companion. He had wanted something simple, something that could keep him company during his long flights. But this was far beyond anything he had ever imagined. He couldn't help but wonder, what had brought this woman to this point? Why had she chosen to enter into this contract? And what would it mean for him if he agreed to take her in? As the moments stretched on, Tristan realized he was faced with a choice. It wasn't just about companionship anymore. It was about responsibility, about taking in a sentient being, and possibly becoming a part of something much larger than he had ever anticipated. The Nexian's eyes never left his, waiting, as if she knew the decision he was about to make. The unspoken agreement. The air in the shop seemed to shift, thickening with an undeniable tension as Tristan stood frozen, staring at the Nexian before him. His thoughts were a whirlwind, swirling in all directions. A companion, a sentient being, bound by contract, was being offered to him as if she were no different than the exotic creatures in the shop's other enclosures. But she wasn't just some alien animal. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, held something that no pet could ever possess: awareness. She was aware, deeply so, of her situation, and her gaze made it clear that she knew exactly what she was signing up for. For a brief moment, Tristan felt as though the weight of the galaxy had descended upon him. He had come here looking for a companion, someone to break the crushing solitude of his ship, but this was far more complicated than a simple pet. The Nexian before him wasn't a pet at all. She was a person, and the idea of taking her on as some kind of temporary companion felt wrong. She wasn't a thing to be owned, but something else entirely, a living, breathing individual with thoughts and feelings. Rill's voice sliced through his thoughts, calm and collected. "I assure you, honored customer, this is entirely legal. The Nexian enters into a temporary companion contract voluntarily, and she will be compensated handsomely for her time. She will offer you the companionship you seek without the complications of a traditional pet." Tristan's stomach churned at Rill's words. "Compensated? You're telling me she's paid for this?" Rill nodded, his iridescent scales catching the dim light. "Indeed. As I mentioned, the Nexians are highly adaptable and can enter into temporary contracts where they are compensated for their services. In return, they offer companionship, loyalty, and in some cases, even protection. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement for both parties, and it's perfectly legal under coalition law." The Nexian, who had been standing motionless, her eyes locked onto Tristan's, finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but there was a quiet strength in it, an authority that betrayed her position in the arrangement. "I have chosen this," she said simply, her gaze unwavering. "I am not a slave, nor am I a prisoner. I am here because I believe it is the best course for me for now." Her words struck a chord deep within Tristan. There was no pleading, no desperation in her voice, only a calm acceptance that made him question the true nature of her decision. How could someone willingly enter into this kind of arrangement? What circumstances led her to this point? He wanted to ask her, to understand her reasons, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he found himself silently observing her, trying to read her every movement. Tristan's mind raced as he absorbed the implications of what Rill had said. A contract, a paid arrangement. It all seemed too clinical, too cold. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was being left unsaid, something far more important than the transactional nature of this offer. The Nexian was here for a reason. She wasn't just fulfilling a contract. She was making a choice, one that Tristan couldn't fully understand. Still, the idea of having someone, or something, to break the isolation of his travels was undeniably appealing. The Iron Phoenix had felt more like a prison than a ship lately, the hum of the engines only amplifying the silence. He had always been alone, and though he had managed to navigate the vastness of space, he knew it had taken a toll on him. Maybe this was the answer. Maybe this Nexian, this living, breathing companion, was the solution to the loneliness that had been eating away at him. His eyes lingered on her, taking in the graceful way she stood before him. She wasn't like any pet he had ever encountered. The sleek, minimalist black outfit she wore was unlike the bulky, utilitarian gear many of the creatures in the shop sported. It seemed to accentuate her form, and yet it was practical, as if she had been designed to move with efficiency and grace. Her collar, a device of unknown purpose, hummed softly, a faint glow emanating from a holographic tag embedded within it. Despite her calm demeanor, Tristan couldn't shake the feeling that there was far more to her than met the eye. "What's your name?" Tristan asked, finally breaking the silence that had hung between them. The Nexian tilted her head slightly, her blue eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and amusement. "My name is Lyra," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of something deeper, something that spoke of wisdom and experience far beyond what Tristan had anticipated. Lyra. The name lingered in the air like an echo, and Tristan found himself repeating it in his mind. It sounded right, as if it belonged to her and no one else. There was a warmth in it, a certain familiarity that made him feel as though he had known her for far longer than the few moments they had shared. "I'm not sure about this," Tristan said quietly, more to himself than to Rill or Lyra. "I came here looking for a pet. Not." He gestured vaguely toward her, unable to find the right words. "Not a person." Rill didn't miss a beat. "I understand your hesitation. honored customer. This is an unusual arrangement, but I assure you, Lyra is not like any pet you've encountered. She is intelligent, independent, and fully aware of the terms of the contract. You will not be dealing with a simple creature that exists for your amusement. You will be dealing with a partner who can communicate, learn, and adapt to your needs. Lyra's gaze softened as she spoke again. I understand your concerns, Tristan. I am not here to impose upon you. I will fulfill my role, but I will also offer you something more. Companionship, understanding, and a connection that goes beyond what you might expect from a simple pet. Her words struck a chord with him, and for the first time since entering the shop, Tristan felt a sense of clarity. He wasn't being asked to take on a responsibility out of obligation or guilt. Lyra was offering him something valuable and deeply human. The idea of having someone, even if only temporarily, to share his journey with was more appealing than he had realized. Tristan took a deep breath, letting the weight of the decision settle on his shoulders. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "I'll take the contract. I'll take you on as my companion." Lyra nodded, her blue eyes glimmering with something akin to satisfaction. "Thank you, Tristan. You won't regret this." Roll stepped forward, his spindly hands moving with precision as he prepared the necessary paperwork. "Excellent choice, honored customer. The contract will be finalized immediately. You will find that your new companion is everything you seek, and more." As Tristan signed the contract, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into uncharted territory. What had he just agreed to? Was he making the right decision? The quiet buzz of uncertainty lingered in the back of his mind, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that perhaps, with Lyra by his side, his days of loneliness were finally over. But as the contract was finalized, Tristan couldn't help but wonder what had truly led Lyra to this point, and what would happen when the contract came to an end. The unseen ties. As Tristan led Lyra out of the stellar companion shop, the neon lights of New Zenus flickered above them, casting surreal, kaleidoscopic shadows on the wet pavement. The rain continued to drizzle, the relentless patter creating a soft, rhythmic backdrop to the otherwise quiet street. Lyra walked beside him, her movements fluid and graceful, yet there was something disquieting about her presence. She wasn't like any companion he had ever imagined. She wasn't just a pet, a source of comfort for his loneliness. No, Lyra was an enigma. And as they made their way back to his ship, Tristan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just invited something far more complicated into his life than he had expected. The Iron Phoenix was parked in a quiet corner of the city's docking bay, nestled among a row of other ships. The contrast between the sleek, high-tech exterior of his vessel and the raggedness of the district around it wasn't lost on him. He had always preferred the solitude of his ship, away from the hustle of cities like New Zenus. But now, with Lyra at his side, everything felt different. She wasn't a machine or a simple creature to be kept in a cage. She was a living being, and every part of him knew that this arrangement would never be as simple as he had hoped. The moment they boarded the Iron Phoenix, Tristan could feel the difference. His ship, which had once been a sanctuary, now felt empty, its cold, metal walls echoing with a new weight. Lyra's presence filled the space in ways that were both comforting and unnerving. As she followed him into the control room, he couldn't help but feel her eyes on him. Those eyes, deep, intelligent, and filled with an awareness that he hadn't expected, never left him. It was as though she were constantly observing, assessing. He set the ship's systems to autopilot, and then turned to her. She had already taken a seat across from him, her posture relaxed but alert. The collar around her neck pulsed softly, a subtle reminder of the contract she had entered into, a contract that, in some ways, felt like a cage. "So, this is it, the Iron Phoenix," Tristan said, attempting to break the silence that had settled between them. "This is my home. You'll have your own space here, of course." Lyra nodded, but her gaze remained unwavering. "I don't need much," she said softly. I'm here for you, Tristan. That's all I need." There was something in the way she said his name, a quiet reverence that made his chest tighten. He had agreed to this. He had chosen this. But the more he spent time with her, the more questions arose. What exactly was Lyra to him? Was she just a companion, a being hired for her loyalty, or was there something deeper between them? Her calmness unsettled him, but at the same time, he found himself drawn to her presence, the stillness she brought with her in the midst of his own turmoil. "You don't have to stay in one place, you know," Tristan said, trying to ease the tension he was feeling. "You can explore the ship, get familiar with it. It's just us out here, for the most part. We have plenty of room." Lyra's eyes softened as she observed him. "I'm already familiar with the ship," she replied quietly. "I've studied its layout. I know what I need to know to help you. But I do appreciate the offer." He frowned. "Help me? I didn't think this arrangement was about me needing help." Lyra's expression remained neutral, but there was something almost knowing in the way she looked at him. "You're mistaken if you think I'm here simply to be a decoration or a comfort, Tristan. I'm here because I can help you, yes, but there's more to this. We both know that. You just haven't figured it out yet." Tristan leaned back in his seat, his mind reeling. Her words, calm, measured, yet filled with an undercurrent of something more, left him unsettled. He had hired her, yes, but he hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected her to be so perceptive. She saw right through him, as if she could read him like an open book. It wasn't like having a dog or even a robot companion. This was entirely different. Lyra wasn't just a passive entity in his life. She was an active participant, one who had entered into this contract on her own terms, just as he had done. "I didn't mean to imply," Tristan began, but Lyra raised a hand to stop him. "No need to apologize," she said, her voice serene. "I understand what you're feeling. You weren't expecting this. You weren't expecting me." She paused for a moment, her eyes piercing. "But you're going to have to accept the reality of our situation. We're both here for a reason, and it's not just for companionship." Tristan swallowed hard. "What do you mean? What reason?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward slightly, her gaze locking onto his. "The reasons are mine to know, for now, but you will understand soon enough. For now, we have a contract, and I will honor it. You don't have to worry about that." Tristan felt a flicker of unease. The weight of her words lingered in the air like a heavy fog. What was she really saying? She was clearly more than just a companion in the traditional sense. There was something else, something that Tristan couldn't quite grasp, but it nagged at him, an unspoken truth between them that was growing more complicated by the second. "I didn't know what I was getting into when I signed that contract," Tristan muttered, more to himself than to her. "I thought I was just bringing on someone to keep me company. But it feels like there's more to you than meets the eye." Lyra's expression softened, but there was still an intensity to her eyes. "You're right. There's more to me than you realized, Tristan. But I'm not the only one who has something to learn here." She paused, as if carefully choosing her words. "You'll come to understand that we are both part of something bigger than either of us can comprehend right now." The silence that followed was heavy. Tristan sat in the control room, staring at her, trying to process the enormity of what she had just said. Lyra wasn't just a companion. She was a key, a piece of some larger puzzle that Tristan had unknowingly stepped into. He could feel it now, like the tremors of an earthquake just beneath the surface. Whatever this was, whatever he had agreed to, it was far from simple. As the Iron Phoenix hummed to life, carrying them into the vast emptiness of space, Tristan realized that this journey would take him places he hadn't anticipated. Lyra wasn't just here for companionship. She was here for something more. And as much as he wanted to deny it, he knew that the decision he had made had just opened the door to a world of mysteries, secrets, and unforeseen consequences. Whatever this was, whatever this contract truly meant, It had only just begun.